Thank you, Lindsay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sarah Gardner. I'm with the University of Kansas Center for Public Partnerships and Research. I'm a poor stand-in today for my colleague Megan Cluth, who typically will be the person providing all of the technical support to you all as you navigate the child care zone concept and potential application process. So welcome, everybody. We're glad that you're here. I'm going to do a little bit of table setting and welcome, and then I'm going to toss it over to the folks you are here to hear from, and that is our friends at KDHE Child Care Licensing, so Melissa Schoenberger and Derek Flairlog. So just want to say welcome. If you're here to talk about or listen about child care zones, you are in the right place. This is webinar one of two. These will be identical. So if you know of a colleague who wasn't able to join during the day, there is also one later this evening. You do have to register for that separate one, but of course we'll drop a link in the chat as we go if you need to share that with any colleagues who'd like to also listen and participate live. There will be another webinar with exactly the same content later this afternoon. So with that, I will turn it over to Derek.
Sarah, I just have one quick question before you turn them
Oh,
over. Will you send
sure.
out the PowerPoint after the webinar today?
Yes, we will.
Great. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks
Here
for
we
the
go.
question. I love
Yeah,
it.
that's
Go
the
ahead, Derek.
question of the hour. Thanks for asking that. Well, thanks, Sarah. Hi, everybody. I'll introduce myself in a second. Want to thank everyone for joining us. I know some of you may be on your lunch hour or devoted some time to this, so we'll try to be quick but very thorough in building some excitement for a funding opportunity that's coming available. So, quick rundown of the agenda. What we're hoping you get out of this webinar today. We have introductions, of course, to some of our team and supportive staff, an overview of what we mean by childcare zones, some application timeline and guidance for what that looks like. You can prepare yourself a little bit, and then a little bit of information and background on some technical assistance or TA opportunities, and then, of course, plenty of time for questions. So I think we want to devote at least a good portion of the time to questions if there are any, and we hope there are. So next slide, Sarah. Thank you. Just went one too far. There we go. All right, thank you. Like I said, I'm Derek Flairlog. I'm the Bureau Director for Family Health here at the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. I oversee several different programs, but for the purpose of this call today, child care licensing is probably the most important one. So as you all may know, DCF is the lead state agency for childcare and for the CCDF federal compliance in the state. But KDHE, through an agreement with DCF, but also by state statute, actually carries out childcare licensing for the state. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it to Melissa to introduce herself.
Good morning. I am Melissa Schoenberger. I am the section director for childcare licensing that focuses on field services and all of our systems work. So very excited because this is the part of my position that is really exciting because it's not where KDHE is driving the conversation. It's where we get to listen to communities and they support us in helping guide the work. So again, very excited to be able to be here today and have be able to hear from you guys as we move through this zone project. Also within our team is Jarvis Dolman. He is the co-director of childcare licensing who focuses in on our operations components within KDHE. So might have heard his name and just wanted to make sure that we shared that and didn't confuse you on our organization roles within KDHE. And then also we have with us Sarah Gardner from KU, who introduced herself earlier, and Megan Cluth, who is still working on getting onto the session. She's having technical difficulties, and I feel her pain because I had to restart Zoom last week and it asked for an update. So feeling all of her pain.
Melissa, Megan was able to join. Megan,
Okay.
because you'll be the TA contact for most folks, I wanted to give her a chance to say hi so you all could put a face with a name.
Good morning. I'm sorry I'm late, but I'm glad to be here. It's good to see some familiar faces, and I look forward to talking to many of you.
All right, thanks, Megan. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide, Sarah. Thank you. All right, so we're here to talk about childcare zones. I'm going to roll down these bullets here and then attempt to make them make sense for you all. So the crux of all this, childcare zones, communities may apply to develop a zone this spring and summer. And we'll get more into the specifics of the application and timelines and some dates and things like that as we get further on into the webinar. A childcare zone itself is a self-defined, geographic area. And we do want applicants to serve a minimum of 2 Kansas counties, a minimum. We would love more, and that self-defined portion of the area is really important. And then grantees will receive funding and state level support to address locally defined childcare challenges. I want to pause there for a moment to talk a little bit about this. So, you know, the genesis of this idea for me was several months back. We were having discussions, and Melissa and I and Megan and Sarah and other state directors that I get the opportunity to work with, we were talking. And, you know, we all work in our areas, but we work collaboratively together. And I said, you know, we hear a lot from folks around the state, whether they're working in nonprofit sector or they're working in a child care coalition specifically, or a healthcare coalition. It could be through a school district, private employer, a lot of different opportunities here. I said they often come to us and they say, hey, they've assessed sort of their local area, and they are coming to us with needs, but those needs don't really fit into any of the opportunities that may or may not be currently available to them. So the first thing I really want to make clear for everyone on the call right from the jump is that there have been grant opportunities that, you know, past couple of years, most notably the Accelerator Grant, and we all know how successful that was and how big of a deal that is, that awarded funds to help with, you know, maybe expansion of slots, expansion of physical space, construction of facilities, whatever that might be. This opportunity is not that. So this opportunity is not focused on construction or building new facilities. This opportunity is really focused on the ecosystem and what we're calling the infrastructure, without talking about the physical space, that supports the operations of childcare in a zone. And again, relying on a zone that's a self-defined geographic area that covers at least 2 Kansas counties. Sarah, I think we can go ahead and go forward on to the next one. And again, write your questions down, and we'll have plenty of time for you guys to ask them as we get towards the end of this. So we would not be here without the funding that's made possible through a federal grant, the Preschool Development Grant the Renewal Grant, otherwise known as PDG. And that was given to the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund in 2024. So a huge opportunity for the state. Not every state gets these. And so special shout out to Sarah for doing a lot of work on that application. And really, really proud of the state of Kansas for getting this funding and making this opportunity possible as well. Next slide, Sarah. Okay, so like I said, important considerations, and some of this may be a repeat of kind of what I just hashed out, but we really want projects to support that minimum of 2 full Kansas counties, and they don't have to be adjacent. And so I think that's the creativity and the freedom that's available in this application is we want to hear what you want to do with the funds and how creative you can be with them in supporting childcare in the community. So childcare zones meant to support a community's needs across the childcare sector. And again, I think another important note is it's not intended to support a single facility or an organization. So it's really about the childcare in early childhood ecosystem. And so we're wanting support for, again, I can't say this enough, at least 2 Kansas counties. And they may support any type of licensed childcare for children birth to 5. And again, early childhood being the focus of these funds. Applications, we do want to include a 25% match, and that match can include in kind. So we want that local buy-in to this funding opportunity. And we'll talk about things like sustainability as well as we kind of go on. I think I have one more on my end, Sarah, if you want to go to the next one. Okay. So childcare zones focused on building and strengthening regional level childcare ecosystems. What we don't want to do is spell out what this is going to be. We want you to tell us What it could be is workforce supports, family supports, again, those broader level supports that we hear about and those discussions that we're in. It's not a discussion about, hey, I need this amount of money to remodel this facility, or we would like to build a new facility. The funding is not for that. The funding is bigger than that. It's about workforce supports, and I don't even really want to mention. I think as we get further on, Melissa might talk about some specific ways to think about it, but we want folks to be creative in this funding. Successful applicants, what does that look like? So showing commitment to collaborative approach and an understanding of local childcare needs. So we want applications to show how they're going to work together. Again, we talk a lot about coalitions and coalition building. Tell us about that. Tell us that collaborative approach. You know, it's the applicant, but then it's who? It's these community organizations. It's these other coalitions that are partnering with us. It's a band of childcare providers that are coming together to support one another. You know, just kind of throwing ideas out there for you all to think about this in a little bit of a broader sense. We are also going to do 2 rounds of funding. So round 1 will come this spring of 25. We are going to invite applicants to interview, or we'll have an interview process, for applicants, and then they'll be invited to apply. And then any interested group can actually apply through that summer round. And so as we've been developing this process and talking internally about what we want this to look like, the biggest things, that community level buy-in, having that creative and broader support outside of a single entity or a single facility, and then that match portion as well, 25% in kind will be considered as well. Melissa, I believe you have the following one, so I'll transition to you.
All right, good morning again. Really great to be on screen with you guys because I feel like in the heart of this presentation is where we get to talk about some of again, buzz term Derek has used, I think, 10 times this morning, and we'll keep using is creative, is a way to really look at the way our counties interact and what your needs are. I have been within childcare licensing and working within the system for many moons, and realized, because I had the unique opportunity to be boots on the ground serving counties in the western half of the states. And each county is very unique in their needs. Each community is very unique in their needs. And this funding provides an opportunity for us to really honor all of those unique aspects that make up where you live, and want to make sure that you really stretch those boundaries with funding that is, again, allows us to be more creative in approach, and really get to the heart of your needs, where you've said, oh, if we just, you've been in your local coalition, if we just had funding to do this, what could that change? And so that's really what we're looking at. And some of those strategies can include, we listed some here, to increase wages or benefits. That's not anything that's new to our system. We hear it continuously, but what do you mean by that in your own area? That could, in my mind, I have one lane forward of what that looks like, but that might be very different. It could be vouchers. It could be things that look to purchase to keep facilities open. So get creative. Tell us what that looks like. Pulling resources. We have substitute pools that exist in our state, but in your community they may not be working. But what could work in your community? How could you get that substitute pool to be a viable option? And retention strategies. We see in our own data that we have facilities that are not fully opened. We have childcare centers that might have units that are closed. Really getting creative in your community of how do you get the staff back into those units to make them functioning, and really serving them at their max capacity. I don't know what that looks like, and help us understand what that can be to get those teachers back in those classrooms. What does it look like in rural communities to get more open facilities? Does it in retention? Because we will be at a point where we are going to have some of our workforce retiring. And what does retention look like that moving forward? So really curious, and it's good to be curious of what your creative strategies would look like to push the envelope of the work in Kansas. And then professional development. We use this buzz term a lot in quality. Regulation is foundational. So we always want to achieve something that is more, and help us define quality. What does quality look like for Sherman County in Kansas versus Johnson County? Kids are the same, but help us define what that looks like, and help us articulate what your needs are. So I am super pumped up to really see what you guys share with us to push the envelope to make sure that the ecosystem doesn't remain stagnant, but that it pushes leadership within our state to acknowledge that there are new ways to do things. So really looking forward to that. And additional ideas, consultational and technical support. Kidichi also has a hand that supports our program, our systems improvement team. And we are going around the state and listening. We're not talking at our system, we're listening to our system. We're asking them to talk to us. And last week, I really heard some focus on mentoring, of providers mentoring each other outside of your normal framework of in the networks in our states. So again, and technical assistance could be an offshoot of what we're hearing, and a support system that we've never had in place. And so again, bleeds right into the second bullet, and ongoing feedback, really understanding and supporting the family. Our facilities are a component that is not often acknowledged in the community as a critical point of resources for families, and really making sure that they are a connection, and that everything that supports a good, healthy community also goes through facilities, and looking at that and looking at it in a different way to connect families to resources. And then really looking at navigation services. Now, I recognize, being a hand of KDHE, that there are points in our system that might be difficult for providers. There might be points that are difficult as you're applying for a subsidy. There might be points that are difficult for families who are trying to access subsidy. And the same vein with our food programs. So maybe a zone is going to tackle some of those navigation systems to support not just the business, but the families who are trying to access. I get really excited about that when I think about navigation system. By trade, I am a social worker, and trying to connect families to critical components in our communities, a great way to support, and a great non-traditional way when you think about the licensing, or not the licensing, the childcare ecosystem in the state of Kansas. So next slide, Sarah.
Hey, Melissa, may I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Wanted to mention something that I didn't bring up in the earlier slides, and we've said it multiple times, but in different ways. So I just wanted to reiterate, as Melissa was going through the potential ideas, the foundation, and like I said, sort of the genesis of this idea was that we can't prescribe local needs. And so I think, grant opportunities can be very strict sometimes. And we saw an opportunity here to say, hey, this funding allows us to go out and have applicants tell us, this is what we need in this county. And then in another corner of the state, or maybe directly by it, their need is totally different. And so, how do we make a funding opportunity that allows for that? And then for us on the state side to follow and measure that success, to see what's working. and where we can expand on sort of these ideas that, like I said, we've heard about. We've heard about from different coalitions or from families too, about some of the ideas that Melissa has mentioned. So I can't reiterate that enough, that we did not want to come into this. And I think one of our concerns is we don't want to tell you what you need. We want you to tell us what you need. And so I wanted to take an opportunity to sort of hit that home a little bit more too. Sorry, Melissa. Thank you.
Nope, because what we provided is, Derek is 110% correct. What we provided on our slides were ideas that have bubbled up through the system. It is nothing that we have identified ourselves. I would love to get credit for some of these ideas. They're not. They're all community driven, and all of the fleshing out of these ideas will be community driven. But again, very unique to your own needs. And this is why we didn't want counties to be aligned geographically, because there might be some room and some space for ideas, and they should not be aligned geographically. We do want you to support more than one county, but recognizing all of those unique needs. And then eligible applicants, not limited to just one type of entity. I love when you look at this this slide that nonprofit, you could go down the whole list. It could be your coalition, community-based organizations, libraries. Libraries are such a center in a community, that we wanted to recognize all of the work that libraries provide to areas, and love seeing them on the list. So as you can see, this is a really wide range, and we're not looking at the usual suspects. We want everything to be very driven by the community. Yes, Amy Wallace asked schools. There's no reasons that a school cannot also apply. So really appreciate that question. But again, really have to have a strong backbone and history of collaboration and partnership. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for the driver in your community that has demonstrated that strong collaboration, so that we can move these creative ideas forward. And I know, really overused statement, but out of the box ideas.
And Melissa too, this is going to become a back and forth. I'm so sorry. But I think just really hitting home, KDHE, we do some other grants, mostly in the quote unquote health space, where we do what's called aid to local funds. And on those applications, and in this one too, as we've stated already, like we want to see those collaborators within the same application. And so all of those entities that were mentioned in the previous slide, every single one of those could be a part of a single application, or two of them, or three of them. It's about what's going on in your community, who's at the table, or maybe even who's not at the table. Who could you bring to the table to be a part of an application or an opportunity like this to strengthen the ecosystem of childcare in that zone, which again, at least 2 Kansas counties. So.
And looking forward to who you bring to the table, because that's just so much important. Echo what Derek said. It's who are we missing, and who did we not think of that really gets me excited for that ongoing collaboration, which will lead to sustainability within your zone area. So real quick, this is the boring part, but it's very important, looking at the application timeline, because I could just talk about systems improvement work forever. But making sure that we don't miss any timelines, because we're going to be very focused on this. Again, today's our informational webinars. We'll have another one in the evening. The release of the application guidance will happen tomorrow. Then on February 3rd, the online application opens. And then from February 3rd to August 18th, there will be some technical assistance available. We do currently are receiving some of that backbone technical assistance from our KU CPPR partners. Eventually, there will be a staff member housed within KDHE that will be solely dedicated to this program. We are going through the application process, and we'll hopefully have them onboarded by the time some of our rounds of final awards are available. And then this important one, as you can tell, because Megan made sure we highlighted it, was February 28th. You need to have letters of interest are due. Must be submitted online by 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. So this is not a leap year. So so don't forget, it is February 28th. So don't go into thinking you have an extra day this year. This is the end of the month, and it is February 28th. And then some more application timelines. March 3rd through the 14th is when we're going to have interviews with prospective applicants. This is where we really get to know those who are interested and really get to ask some questions. And then that's when we will have the more formal invitation to apply following the interview. And then April 7th, round 1 applications will be due. Again, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then the week of April 21st, we're going to announce the first round of grant awards. And April 25th is when the round 2 applications due. So you'll see that there's, back to back for round 1 and round 2. And then projected timeline of September 15th to announce the second round of grant awards. Megan, any questions in the chat that we need to address, or are you taking care of those?
There is one about where the application will actually live. And so I know Derek's gonna cover that in a couple of slides. So answer is
Okay, perfect. Then we can just move to the next one, Sarah. Okay, funding. Yep, that is Derek to talk about our funding mechanism.
All right, thanks, Melissa. So childcare zones, we've tried to align with the Kansas PDG timeline. So I think if you don't know, but I'm sure most do, everyone on this call, sometimes fiscal years don't match up the way we want them to, and it can make the fiscal portion of it more difficult for the folks that have to watch those funds. So we've worked hard to try to align with that. I think the biggest piece, each PDG year budget is pending congressional approval. So just a reminder that the funds are federal in nature. So year 1, as we've stated to this point, May 1st to September 29th of 2025, and those are our round 1 grantees. Again, we're doing 2 rounds. Year 2, pending the funding, of course, September 30th, 25 through that next September 29th of 2026. And so that'll cover that full federal fiscal year. I won't even begin to talk about the mismatch of state and federal fiscal year, which again, I'm sure you all know about. And then year 3, again, pending funding, September 30th, 26 through August 1st of 27. So as you're building your applications, I would just say, you're thinking about that sustainability through these years. And you're looking beyond the 3-year grant opportunity as well. So we would love to support and see ideas that we can assist in building up and using that match as that sort of community local buy-in piece to then build that sustainability beyond the 3 years. Next slide.
Derek, do you mind if I interject?
Yeah, please. You guys jump in at any point.
Just from the for those of you who don't know, I help support the PDG grant itself for the state. And one of the things that's really important to understand about the PDG funding is that the funds need to be spent within the grant year as well. So it isn't a grant that you receive and then have extra time to spend. So think about your grant year as I get my award and I have to spend my full award inside that year. Within PDG, as Congress appropriates those additional 2 years that are on the slide here, we have some flex to move within, but don't count on that is what I would say. As you're building your project and you're building your budget, really think of these as really bucketed years where you have to spend the funds within that year on those activities.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. So we've mentioned this before. They are not the use of the funds for the zones. They cannot be expended for purchase of land, building, or vehicles, construction, capital improvements, and expenditures, food or beverage, and then of course supplanting for personnel. So again, thinking about these funds in a little bit of a different way than some of us may be used to. We're looking for ideas and workforce supports and that ecosystem sort of supports that we hear about so often. Next slide. All right, here is the answer to one of the questions. So again, we use a line of funding at KDHE called Aid to Local, and we are lucky to have an in-house portal called KGEMS, the Kansas Grant Management System. So we've been working closely with their team. It's in-house, so it's our team, but outside of our bureau to develop an application on that. And Megan and I and Melissa have spent a couple of weeks learning from the development team for KGEMS about all of the things that we'll need to do to ensure that people have access. So don't worry about that. We'll make sure folks that are interested are taken care of. And then we've been also working on an application guidance document as well. And the team will make sure that's posted on the allinforkansaskids.org webpage January 28th, which is tomorrow. And that will have an outline of the application and the review process. I don't want to call it a lengthy document. I'd say it's a thorough document. And then, of course, it'll be updated as needed in an FAQ style as we get questions and find that we need to clarify certain things. Megan, I don't know if you want to mention anything about that guidance document or if I covered it all.
No, I think you covered it all. I mean, I think as it says on the screen, like as people are submitting questions, like there's a good chance if you have a question, somebody else has the same question. So we will definitely keep that live in the same PDF. So know that if you know, in a couple weeks have a question, that document probably has a little bit more information than it will tomorrow because we are learning from you.
Absolutely. And I should mention too about KGEMS, again, Kansas Grant Management System. All that info will be given, so don't worry. But that is also the place where we would have things like progress reports. It has a built-in budget on it. Like it really takes care of everything that you need on all sides to functionally manage a grant. And so so hopefully you'll find it very useful. I know we've spent several years updating it and doing different improvements and enhancements to the system. So next slide, Sarah. Awesome. So we'll have an online request form where those questions and requests for technical assistance or TA can be submitted. And Megan will be the one supplying that. So we're really grateful for her. And she's done amazing work on tons of other opportunities. Megan, I would assume that way predate my time even here at KDHE. So, and she's really, really great at being a good listener and then taking that back to the drawing board to see how we can answer it. So we appreciate her being available to help us with this. Again, we'll have the information made available on allinforkansaskids.org, which if you haven't checked out, you can go to it right now, or maybe once we're done, how about that? And peruse all the other info that's also on that. There's a ton of stuff, just early childhood as a whole in Kansas. That's really your hub for information. So, and use technical assistance as you think about it if the funding opportunity is right for you. So I think really to boil that down is if you have questions or comments or concerns, let us know. Let us know, and we'll do our best to absolutely address. We can go to the next slide, which is questions. Before we do that, I had a couple in the chat that I can go ahead and answer. Sarah, I will defer the supplanting question to you right from the jump.
Amy, that's a great question. So this is language directly from PDG. So, and the same thing with the ineligible expenses. We are passing along what the state of Kansas is held to directly to you all as a potential grantee. So supplanting is anything you already have in your budget already paid for. You cannot technically use these grant funds to backfill or cover. So that's what supplanting is really about. The grant funds are intended to be really new items that weren't previously already covered by other revenues in your budget. That's the formal definition of supplanting. And we will ask through the application process to understand your other match sources and other community match that you're bringing to help tease that out. But if you have questions or specific examples, definitely send that to the TA, and we can look at budgets on screen and actually help you understand and make sure that you're applying for eligible expenses.
Yeah, we're very used to, and KU CPPR obviously as well, very used to just working closely with applicants or potential applicants on different grant opportunities. So we don't want you all to feel like you're out alone trying to figure it out. And that's also the purpose of adding the feedback and the questions we get through TA to the guidance document itself, so that if others have the same question down the road, hopefully we're able to kind of answer those as we go along. All right, I had a question on funding. What was it here? How much funding available for the state of Kansas Child Care Zones for year one? So we are capping it at 250,000 as a max per applicant. Or per application, I should say. A couple of ways to think about this that I would say, while that is the max, in other grants that we do that go to, whether it's local health departments or local organizations to do other work. In our bureau, we do a lot of maternal child health work. It's actually the majority of our work, I would say. And so when we give that grant guidance, we really say think big and collaborate together to think big. There's nothing wrong with smaller lines of funding, but for this, we really want that larger support. So $250,000 is the max, and that's per grant year that we've talked about. And again, Megan, I would look to you and Sarah if there's anything additional on the actual funding amounts itself that you would want to take an opportunity to mention.
I would just note, like, the year one is not a full 12-month year, so it may be that amount is smaller. And I think also to echo Sarah's point earlier of like, I mean, I think our general approach is ask for what you need, but also be like practical about, like, particularly if you would need to hire somebody, like just the time it takes to get somebody on. So ask for what you need, but also be mindful of like, can you really reasonably spend it, particularly in a shorter timeline for year one. But again, with the technical assistance, both for the budget and just if you're thinking about, like, if you're kind of like, I'm curious, but I'm not sure if this is the right fit, like, lean on the TA. That's why we're here. We can talk through those questions and figure out if it's the right fit and if the way you're thinking about the budget aligns.
Okay. So Pamela asked, are these community-based, personal business-based, or both? Melissa, Sarah, and Megan, come off mute if you want to add to this or if I state it incorrectly. I would think of it as an opportunity for both. Maybe the thing to remember is that the application needs to support a zone, right? 2 or more Kansas counties, doesn't have to be adjacent. And so could a personal business be an applicant or be the lead applicant? Surely they could, but you need to show that collaboration in your application. Melissa, anybody want to add to that at all?
I think adding to that from a different lens is that because I'm not sure, because I interpreted that question just a little bit different. But from a different lens is that the application is not to support one entity, one business, but to look at the whole community and making sure that we're addressing not just one single business, similar to what the accelerator grants support it with opening up new spots. So it's very interesting because Derek and I both took that question in 2 different ways. And so it's kind of, so now we're answering it in 2 different ways, and I think both apply. So just really letting you guys to see that. And I know that is more of a challenge in our more rural communities where we have just 1 or 2 facilities, and which is a reality in some of our counties. But then really looking at some of those other ideas of connecting families and what are we missing. And so there's so many opportunities to get creative on addressing, and I say this with air quotes, the child care crisis, but as defined by you, the applicant, versus the state.
We talk a lot about the child care crisis looking a little bit different in each community, and that's really That's really the purpose of this funding. Like I said, so I think that's a great point, Melissa. We mentioned it earlier, but excuse me, not meant to support one single entity or business. We want applicants to think bigger than that. Could it support John Doe's, family childcare home? Absolutely. But that and then some, And so we want you to think big here.
Derek and Melissa, one other way to think about it is what is the need in your community? And, at a very simple level, we know there are slot shortages all across the state of Kansas. That is the same in almost every county is experiencing that kind of shortage. But really, what is the unique needs of the families searching for childcare and the providers serving those families in your area? Is it a transportation barrier? Is it we really not just globally we have a wage issue, but what's your very specific recruitment retention issue, unique to the workers in your area. So it's really looking at what is your need and making your project based on filling that need. So
Yeah.
There
Next,
was a question in here from Laura that I don't think we've addressed. It's how do you get an interview? Is it based off of the letter of interest that is due on February 28th?
short answer I would say is yes. Yes. And I'm scrolling down here. Once we make it through these, there'll be an opportunity for folks to come off of mute as well. Or you're welcome to keep typing questions into the chat too. So if $250 is the max amount per applicant, what is the amount the state has available for the child care zone funding? Sarah, do you want to take that one, maybe like PDG as a whole? I don't want to misspeak as far in terms of PDG funding to the state.
it's around $1 million per year, Jennifer. It does vary because of the weird timelines, but you can think of it as around $1 million per year. So if you do the math, that kind of gives you a sense of the number of grants that will come out of the process.
Could a particular organization be of support and collaborate with multiple zones? Say, for example, Child Care Aware of Kansas or Casito. I mean, I don't know how to answer that one. Yes, they could support. I mean, Megan, I saw you kind of.
Yeah, I'm happy to take it. I mean, I think yes. And I think the answer is we don't know exactly what that
Yeah.
would be like, but absolutely. And I would certainly encourage, I mean, I think there are quite a few organizations that could fall in that category of being interested in being a support for potentially multiple zones. So I think that could, I think this is the time to have those conversations about what collaboration might look
Great
like.
point.
And I think also you can certainly, part of collaboration is bringing partners that have different assets and skills to the table. And so it may be I would just say start that conversation now. And again, if you're not even if you're interested but you're not sure how to have that conversation, submit a TA request and we can get on screen and brainstorm what that might look like. But yeah, absolutely. I think I think this is a more the merrier situation.
Derek, this is Cleveland McCrory from ESDAC, and I guess I'm hoping one thing that could come out of this that we actually get down to the local level for a region, if you get my point. I see this I'm helping doing a lot of business development type support stuff, and they have new employees come in and they don't know where to look for available slots or that kind of thing. So I'm hoping there can become some regional support networks or that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that sounds like an
That really know the communities and aren't just some big statewide thing.
Sure. Maybe that'd be an opportunity again to partner with one of the organizations as well to explore what that could look like. I think that's what Megan's sort of getting at, and her wonderful answer was those organizations or like a statewide organization could absolutely collaborate with an applicant and multiple applicants for that
Right.
matter. If you've determined that you want to attempt to do something like that, Clela, like in your area, in your zone, right? And that organization, or you've deemed an organization as a critical component to helping carry that out, that could be a discussion between you and them to be a part of that application. And I think that'd be a really strong application too. So, bringing in those
Right.
external partners. Go ahead, Melissa.
But curtailing it to your needs, because
Yes, yeah, of course.
this is again, the whole excitement about this application is we have statewide organizations who have directives and deliverables and carry that out, but may just be not always aligned with what you need in your community. So this would maybe be an opportunity for an applicant to push that envelope, to work with some of our partners that are on screen with us today, because I see people from CCA and Child Care Aware and from Casito that that you can say, hey, now I really want to curtail it just a little bit for my zone. Like here's what you offer, but I really want to personalize it, I guess, is, like thinking about our tags on our cars. Everybody gets a tag, everybody has to be legal, but you can have the opportunity to personalize it to meet your own needs and functions. And so really thinking about it that way is really excites me to think that we could push the system to be better for all Kansans and recognize that not every community is the same.
Something I see, I'm dreaming outside the box, is there's entities like ESDAC that do K-12 services. I could see it becoming birth 12 services, if you get my point, possibly. And we reach 58 school districts. So, that's just a thought anyway.
Yeah, I'd say keep dreaming. I love
And
that.
there'd be boots on the ground in each one of those school districts already built with the K-12 system.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love the thought process, love the way you're thinking about that. So I think it's wonderful to hear. Megan, I'm gonna punt this question to you just because I don't know that we've talked about it.
The interview question?
The child care zone interviews and whether
Lauren, I appreciate it, because you know what? Honestly, we don't have a super firm answer on that. So thank you for the question. I think it would be ideal to have a couple of representatives because this is so collaborative. I think we also want to be mindful of scheduling. It'll be like a 2-week period. So I would say I don't think there's like a hard and fast rule around it. It would be, like I said, ideal to have a couple people, but I think it's probably going to be mostly just like a coordinating issue. So I would, if you're putting a letter of support in, we will try to turn around, like letting people know about interviews as fast as possible so you can get it on calendars. And also I think the intent is to have as many conversations as we can. Like this is really, the letter of interest is really just to kind of hold spots on and help us know how many people are interested in this. So go ahead and submit and we will get them scheduled as fast as we can. And just let your team know that there may be a request that week. But if it comes down to people's schedules, like I think we can make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say it can only help. It can only help, but we certainly don't want to penalize anybody for the difficulty that is coordinating schedules. So that would be my answer to that.
Can I add one point of clarification too around I know it's a little bit confusing that there's 2 rounds of funding, and I just want to clarify, like, the purpose of that is acknowledging communities are in very different places with these conversations around childcare. And so there's really not an advantage to being like a round 1 applicant other than having a little bit more time. But if you are really interested in this and you're saying, oh, wow, I just wish we had a few more months, like that's exactly the point of the round 2. And it doesn't mean like you're any less well positioned for it. It's truly a timing factor. So I just wanted to, I don't want people to feel like they have to rush to submit an application in round 1 because of the timeline. We really encourage you to use the TA to help you get ready to apply in the summer. Again, people are in different places, and so it takes time to have conversation and build collaboration. And this is more about like meeting you where you are and giving you time to get where you want to go instead of trying to meet a specific funding deadline. So we really encourage people who feel very good about being able to submit an application for round 1 to to do so, but don't panic if you're feeling like you need a few more months, because there are a few more months to help you get there.
Any other questions? Anyone's welcome to come off of mute and ask, or just comments as well. Doesn't have to be a question.
Do you plan to put your phone and email contact information in there, or is there going to be some form that we have to put all of our questions in publicly?
It won't be public, but there is a forum, and I will drop that link in the chat. It's really just so that it doesn't get hidden in anybody's inbox, but it's a simple form. I'll be the one that you'll actually talk to, but I'll drop that form in here, and you can submit any questions, and also feel free to say like, hey, can we just set up a call so we can walk through your questions?
Okay, so you'll put your contact information, because I can see having some questions that would want to bounce back and forth rather than 16 million emails.
Absolutely, 100%. No, I completely understand. I think
Speaking
we're
my
gonna have some
language.
people that are like, hey, I just have this. I already had one this morning that was like a quick one-off question. That's fine. And also if you're like, I don't even know how to write this into a form of a question, I just need to talk to you, send that. It's a simple form online, and I will get back to you, and we'll schedule something.
Okay.
And
So you're going to put it in the chat then?
Yes, I'll drop it in the chat in just a minute.
Okay.
And we are, again, there's going to be another grant guidance document that will be released. Megan, I'm kind of putting you guys on the spot, but do you think there's a way to send that out to the attendees, the folks that have registered? And maybe that's the plan.
We can do that. Yes, we will send, we can send a copy of the slides and the application guidance. We're putting the final touches on it, and so it'll be available tomorrow. And then all of this information will also be available on the All In for Kansas Kids site. So I would recommend maybe bookmarking that page, and we can drop the link in, mostly because that's where we'll like if we do update the application guidance with FAQs, as I imagine we will, that will be the most up to date. But again, you can always reach out through the TA request form.
Yeah.
Megan, I have one more question. This is
Sure.
Cleo again. I like seeing an application all at once. And so are you going to possibly, if we request a application guidance document or something that would show all the questions that we need to address, so we don't have to, because when you're doing an online portal, you usually can only see the part you do, and sometimes you can't back up in it and that kind of thing. So that would be very helpful for application preparers.
Absolutely. I have written many grants myself, so I very much appreciate the need for that. Yeah, so in the application guidance document, there's a section that actually like has all the questions. So you will ultimately do it in the portal, but you can certainly like copy and paste that into a Word document. It has, I think there's only one section that has a character limit. It lets you know that. But yeah, you will be able to actually see. And then there's also a description of like how the scoring will be broken down in that document.
Okay, great.
I do, Dana, I'm going to get to you in just a second. I do want to pitch real quick because I'm seeing a couple of folks in the chat, pitch the idea of collaborating, which is awesome. But there also may be opportunity with some of the organizations, statewide organizations that we've mentioned, to maybe utilize them for that as well. This is just an idea, but to ask them about who's doing work in your community or who's collaborating in your community to help you connect. And so, again, just wanted to throw that out there. Dana, your virtual hand has been raised.
All right. So my virtual question is, so I work for the Northwest Kansas Economic Innovation Center. Right now, we coordinate a childcare hub for Northwest Kansas, which is a great fit for a zone. And as the person who coordinates that, I know before this, this opportunity came up, there are definite areas that I can see that will fit into this region wide, and we plan on having that application. My question is, there might be a local community, or at least 2 counties, that wanted to do something in addition. I mean, so at what point is it conceivable that, the Innovation Center could do a regional thing, but that maybe a larger county like a Saline County or an Ellis County would want to pair up and do something as well? I'm just kind of wondering about if we kind of get into a back and forth on who's going to apply for a county. Of course, we will reach out to all of our county reps and tell them that we plan
Sure.
on doing that for, our very large region. But, I want to be able to tell them, if you don't want to be part of ours, you could still, or could they be part of both? So, yeah, it's just kind of, when you're thinking of that large of a region, how that could work.
Yeah, that's a
My
trying to figure out how
inclination
best
would
to
be,
frame my answer. Oh, go ahead, Melissa. Go ahead.
Now, I would say what we would want to look at, and I'm just throwing this out, is the letter of interest, so we can better understand the concepts of what each applicant would want to be doing, and if it meets the premise of the goal of this grant application. Because they could be doing two very separate
of course. Yeah.
activities, and so but both data driven for the community. But I think, Dana, the piece that we would want to reconcile and look in tangent is, are you collaborating and are you partnering? Because it doesn't serve us if those applicants are doing two different things, crossing over in the same county, and it doesn't impact the system. And, and we're looking for that collaboration and partnership. So I think we would have to look at that very, be very mindful of our approach and how we look at that. And understanding that collaboration and partnership is going to be key.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
But Sarah, Megan, Derek, anybody else want to jump in, or if you have anything else to share?
No, I think that was good.
And I just have to say, I've been looking at the chat, and I appreciate that we see collaboration happening in real time. Like, that gets me super excited, and realizing that this application and where we're moving with this funding is in the right direction. Because unintentionally, we already see people saying, hey, do you want to collaborate? Hey, what's everybody interested in? So just a great way to see that again happening in real time. Such a positive.
I agree. And to add to that, I think as many of you already have really strong collaborations in your communities, if you're interested in this, but you're not really sure who else to talk to in your area, as long as we know that you're interested, we might have some ideas for you. So feel free to think to again use the TA for lack of a better term, like explore kind of matchmaking opportunities if there are other potential groups in your area that you may just not be connected to at this point.
And we've seen that in other grant programs, I would say, not necessarily in the childcare space, but it happens where we see separate applications in the same area. We're actually able to connect those folks to collaborate and work together on a single application. And so there may be some opportunity there to carry out something like that. So hold some space for questions, comments. We'll have another webinar this evening if anybody feels like hearing my voice again, or just really wants to clarify something. Maybe you go away with this opportunity with a question and want to come back later and ask. But again, we'll have the guidance document. Megan has put the TA and question submission form in the chat along with her email information. And so, Megan, I hate to volunteer your email inbox, but I think you're here for it. Reach out to her. But we're all here as well. So any other questions from anybody?
So is Megan the only contact that we're going to get contact information on?
Right now, yes.
Okay.
Yep, she is the point of contact for this. That is absolutely. To
Okay.
Melissa's point earlier, Cleela, though, we are working to hire a full-time employee, a staff person here at KDHE that will oversee this program, is what we'll call it.
Okay.
And so from the state's perspective as well, especially as time goes on, there may be some changes in that the way that we have folks contact people that work in this space. But Megan's has that direct line of communication as well with, should it need to, get feedback from Melissa or I or Sarah, whomever it might be, she's able to relay all of that info. So I think it's better to have everybody go through one individual person rather than, like you said, creating separate email chains and trying to monitor them all.
Right.
Okay. I'm scrolling through the names in the boxes. I'm not seeing anybody with raised hands. Megan or Sarah, do you guys see anything? All right. Well, once again, another webinar this evening. More information to come. This informative webinar, as we're calling it, really meant to build up some excitement as well. I'm just gonna say it. I'm pumped about this. It's a concept we've been working on for quite a while, and we know there's just such a need, not just childcare, but in helping support the providers and the businesses and the communities themselves. And so I'm really, really excited to see what folks can dream up and that we can help support. Megan or Sarah, do you need to do anything fancy to wrap us up? Because I'm not the holder of authority on this call.
No, it's just a couple quick clicks on our end. So thank you all.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Lindsay, just real quick. Lindsay did
Ooh.
drop in how to register if anybody's interested in tonight in the chat. So if you want to grab that and you want to hear some more opportunity, I just didn't want that link to go away since you just put it in.
Yes, and the recordings for both will be available on the All In for Kansas Kids site. So if you want to hear something that tomorrow you're like, oh, what did they say about that? That should be live sometime tomorrow.